Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. We're looking at a digital lock, and I know what you're thinking, we're looking at a Carbine 3-in-1, but we're not. What we're looking at is what's left over of another digital lock, and that digital lock is, after I fitted it, you see I've got all this rubbish in there, is a Lockwood DX Digital lock. So that's come straight off the door. I don't even have the code for that. So I'll take you through and roughly explain to you what's in the lock, and then we'll see if we can pick it, fix it, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's the inside, that's the stripe, it's the plate, and a couple of screws to keep it on the door. Okay, so to start with, these plates look like they've been modified from another one to actually suit this Lockwood one. No big deal, but basically they cover up the 54mm hole from whatever other hole was on the door. So they use these scar plates to just make it look nice. So that's a nice piece of stainless. We do sell these on our website too, and then you're left with something that looks nicer on the door. So scar plates, they're good. They never get old and they never go out of fashion. So they're always good to have on the shelf. This latch here as well is what we call a 530 latch. As you can see, it's written here 530 series Lockwood MS. So these latches are about 65 bucks. They're not cheap. So it's always good to have a few around. Now this one here has been used, but it's not that old. There's not much wear on it, and it'll make a really good replacement part if we're on a job where the latch is played up. So, you know, that might be a cheaper option. We can pass those savings on to the customer. So that's something that will be going in the parts compartment. The striker plate, we've got plenty of these. There's no real use keeping that. There's nothing special about that. They do have quite a larger rectangular in there, so they are good in some circumstances where you need a little bit more of the rectangle. If the latch is like centered down a bit too far on the door or something, sometimes these can get you out of trouble just by having one and swapping it out with the standard compared to the stand one that's in the box. Right, so what drives this lock? There is actually a spindle that goes from one to the other, and obviously that's still in the toolbox. There's a spindle that goes from one to the other. Now when this turns, that will actually turn the latch right here, and you can turn it on the inside with the outside being locked. So you just turn that handle. You can fit it two ways too. You can fit it left to right, or you can fit it up and down. So once you turn that, that pulls the latch back, so you've got egress or escape from the outside. Now the reason this lock came off the door is because it was actually jamming up. The buttons don't stay down, and the code doesn't seem to want to work. So I know what's happened with it. It's just basically been played with and forced and things along those lines. So let's go through and see what we can tell. So I'm pushing the clear button, and it's, you know, nothing was really releasing. It felt a bit solid. I'm going to go through and just check my numbers. Okay, so I can't even push the 1 button down. 2 buttons got a bit of spring. 3's got a bit of spring. 4 seems quite hard. 5 seems quite hard. X and Y have spring. Z is hard. And the 6 up the top. So I can't even push them down. So if I push this C button, I can't do that either. So I'm going to push the C button, move the mechanism, see what's happening, and I'm still getting nothing. So I don't know how they've actually managed to get this even working, but I can't even push those buttons down. So my diagnosis was swap it out, replace it, because there's no way you can get these parts reliable now. They're so small, these parts, that when they start playing up, a slightest of burr on the mechanism can cause a lockout situation, and it's not reliable. Alright, so there's no way I can even pick it because I can't even get these buttons down there, but they are pickable and you can do that. Alright, so let's have a look and see what's on the inside. Take off our rubber boot. Now when I look at this, I can tell exactly what the code is. The code is the red ones, and the blue are not the code. So I can see that the 7 and the 8 are pushed up. Now if I push, and even the C button, I can tell that that's pushed up and that's not clearing as well. So if I push the C button down, and if I try and move those other numbers, I can't get them down. So the red ones are the code, the blue ones are not the code, and at the moment they're all over the place. So let's get it apart and see what's happening. So the only thing we can do now, I mean, it is repairable. You probably could use it on your garden shed or something like that, but as far as professionally, no, it would be something that you'd want to get rid of, because if it plays up again, your customer's going to be very unhappy. These are my little dishes. They cost me $2 from the Indian shop. They're used for curry. Normally you put curry in there, but they're nice little stainless dishes, very cheap. So if you have an Indian shop close by and you want some of these little dishes for screws and things like that, or if you're making up multiple cylinders, just buy 10 of them. It'll set you back about 15 bucks or 20 bucks. Well worth it. Okay, and fourth one off. These are spring loaded, so just apply a little bit of pressure when taking it apart. Okay, so here's the plate, and here's the springs. Now these springs can fall off, but that plate's actually in good condition, and all these springs, I can feel they're all good. Be careful, they can actually completely fall. Alright, so here we are here, so let's get down to business now. Where are my tweezers? I'm going to hold the C button and see what's going on here. So I'm going to take these discs out. Now remember, on this side row here, they all should be facing the same way, which is unhappy. So you've got happy and grumpy, which is, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, you can see that. Okay, that's happy, that's grumpy. Okay, so your discs on the first side are that way, and the discs on the second side are that way. Pretty quick explanation. Alright, so to get these ones out now, we need to kind of push the C button, move the mechanism, and see what's happening. What I feel has happened is somebody has forced the mechanism and they're jammed in there. I'm actually going to have to reef them out to get them out. There we go, some side cutters. So the mechanism's actually trapping them in there. See if I can get one or two of them out at least. Okay, can't get any of them out. So it's gone past the stage of being able to do anything with this lock. Somebody's really forced this handle with these levers, and it's basically created a jamming effect. Okay, I think we found one. Okay, so there's the lever. Let's have a look at some of these levers in a second. Oh, you know what? That has freed them up. That was the worst offender right there. So I can get movement on all of these now. So let's just pull a few out. Okay, let's just have a look at what's going on here. So let's zoom right in. Okay, so the worst offender was this one here, and I can see there is a massive scar right there. Wish I could zoom in a bit further. Wait for that to focus. Always there. Okay, so there's a massive scar right there, massive burr which has happened. On this one here I can tell it's got a scar as well. This one here has got a small scar on the side as well. This one's not too bad. Sorry, I can see it's been deformed out of shape there on that side, and this one's been deformed out of shape on that side. So the way this locking system works is that when this button is pushed, okay, this little cutout will allow the lock to open. So the red ones have a cutout in a different position to the blue ones. So as you can see here, the cutout is here, and that's a working one, and on a non-working one the cutout is lower down. So what that means is that if this button is pushed, it will be trapping on this spot, so it won't allow it to work because that's a non-working. If this button is pushed, it will allow it to turn because the gate is further down. So it's pretty straightforward, you know, that one will get pushed and that one wouldn't get pushed, and you see the cutouts here will align. And when you turn the knob, there's a little piece of metal on the side here which will actually check that disc and push into that disc, and if that disc is in the way, it won't allow it to open. So that's pretty much the way they work. Okay, so now that we've got those broken parts out of the way, It is possible to possibly do something with this lock now, but it's not going to be a reliable lock. So it's pretty much going into the parts container now. If there's that much wear on these brass mechanism parts, there's going to be other wear on this actual internal mechanism. So that's why I think it's better just to throw it away. The handle itself has quite a bit of movement there. And this lock is made in Japan. Many different versions and copies of this lock, but this is the Australian one. Alright, so let's get to changing the combination. So if I hold and push the C button, that allows me to remove the discs and put them in the order that I want them. As I said before, there's different configurations. So that's the Grumpy's on this side, so I could move that disc down to any position. And that's a blue, so I'll be turning that position off. That's a red, so I move that down to where I want, and I'd be turning that position on. You can have a multiple to as many numbers as you want on or off. So if you wanted it to work on 1 number, 2 number, 3 number, 4 number, 5 number, 6 number, you could, as long as you had enough discs to do it. On this side here, we said that was the happy side, where the bottom of the disc is like a happy formation. I could move that to any position I want to turn that number on or off. I could also flick it around and put it on the other side, but I do have to flick it around if I go from one side to the other. The X and Y work just as purely as numbers. They're just X and Y, you know. They don't do anything special. When you do start using this particular lock, it's always best to push the C button, because if any of these buttons have been depressed, it allows all of them to reset, and then you can put your code in. A lot of people are very rugged with this lock. What they do is they push in all the buttons and then they give the handle a big crank, and that's how come we've ended up with these type of disc for deformations and this lock being thrown in the bin, is because if they were to start with the C button, they would have most likely have cleared off any invalid code before they started cranking the handle. Instead, they put the valid code in, and then there's 1 or 2 buttons that are pressed in, or a sticky button, and then they crank it and they wreck the mechanism, they wreck the discs. So okay, so let's leave that disc out. This disc doesn't look too bad, so we will pop him in there. You can also leave the disc out completely. It means you won't get any feeling on the actual button whatsoever, but you can do that if you need to kind of get the lock working again. I'm just going to put a couple in here just to get it working for a second. Is that the really bad one? It's not good. I can also see quite a lot of grease and rubbish on this one. Okay, so let's just set it up with that right there. So we know at the moment our code is on 90. You can put that in any combination too, by the way. You can have 90 or 09. It's all the same. Okay, let's pop a screw on the back of that one. More numbers, more secure. Less numbers, less secure. Okay, so now I'm going to just try pushing in all the numbers, and I'm going to see what numbers hold, which ones don't. So I can see 3 right now doesn't want to engage, but that's okay because it's not part of the combination. Everything else seems to be reasonable to engage. 9 is not engaging as well. Okay, so what that means is to get this to work, I could push the 0, but I'd actually have to hold down the 9 to get it to work. Okay, so I push the 0, I push the 9, it's not going to work because the 9 is not engaging. Okay, now let's see if we can actually see if this is manipulatable. So I'm getting a variety of feelings with this lock right now, and I'm not getting any clear indication of the actual combination, mainly because this type of lock, if you were to go through and pick it, you need things to be in reasonable condition. If they're all bent out and twisted, it's not going to be an easy thing to pick. But yes, these are pickable, and I can go through and actually find the combination just by feel. And it does take a lot of skill and a lot of practice, but I'm not going to demonstrate that here because this thing's completely out of whack, maybe at a later stage. Alright, so that's the mechanism there. The rest of the mechanism inside, you really don't need to be pulling that apart. You can also get fitting plates, so you can convert these to a 002. Simple matter of just undoing these two spikes, putting the new plate on, which is something like this, and then you put your screw in there, and that will allow you to adapt this particular lock to different types of locks, like a mortise lock, a 002, or some other type of latch. It is a different footprint to the Borg, so these two points here are different, so it's not a straightforward replacement. That's why a lot of people, if they see one of these, they just put on the same thing that's on there, and that saves a lot of people a bit of time rather than modifying it. Okay, there's a quick look at the Lockwood DX Digital lock, which has come off the door after being used, and the reason it came off the door was mainly because of misuse and not being gentle enough with it and not clearing the code, and the discs being all out of whack and the mechanisms being, you know, completely crunched. So that was replaced with this lock here, Carbine electronic lock. We sell this lock on our lock shop. One of the benefits of this lock over the other lock is we have a key override. So if electronically things go south, we've still got that key override, so we can still lock up, unlock with no problems. We can use a card with this one. We can also use the code, and sometimes you can even set it up with your mobile phone as well. So PIN number, card, and key give us 3 options. It was a little bit smaller in comparison, like the lock had the holes about here, so a little bit of putty was needed, but you know, that's not the end of the earth. And this lock here as well, it beeps, it's a little bit nicer. You can't wreck the mechanism by, you know, putting in the wrong code and crunching it. It's not that type of lock. If you try the handle and the handle moves, it means it's locked. The handle isn't engaging. When you enter in your code, the handle engages the latch, and you pull it down and it works. So yeah, out with the old and in with the new. Leave your opinion of this lock down below, and thanks for watching.